Hello, everyone. Welcome to Three Count Radio. And today I have the host of Guiding Light TV, Isaiah Quinn. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
You're very welcome
you
indeed.
Okay?
I'm
you
great,
all right?
thank you.
Yeah, good.
Very, very well, thank you. Very well.
Excited to be here.
How have you been doing through lockdown then?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think this last lockdown's been a bit rubbish, really, hasn't it? Because I think with the first lockdown, everyone was kind of up to the challenge and in it together, and I was furloughed for a long part of that. But then getting back to work in about October time, it's been difficult kind of working from home and sort of trying to do your work from home. And then other lockdowns, it's like, God, there's only so many times I want to go out for a walk, and that's like the only thing you can do, isn't it? So,
yeah,
but other
I agree.
than that, I've been all right, mate. Yeah.
Good.
Have you been all right with it?
It's taken a lot of motivation out of me. I've been doing an online course on counselling, so that's kept me busy.
Oh, good.
And well, the podcast. So I've had a couple of projects keep me busy here or there, but I've got a girlfriend in Manchester I can't go and see, and I know I'm not the only one with those problems, of course, but it's difficult, but we'll get through it.
Yeah. Keep plugging away, eh?
So, a young Isaiah Quinn, who were you watching, and who would it have been to influence you to make your choice to start training?
A young Isaiah Quinn. So, I think my main influence was Sting, growing up. Watching WCW on Channel 5 back in the day when they had the highlight shows, just kind of seeing that personality. He didn't really do much when he was the Crow, Sting. And I think that's kind of quite unique to sort of capture that young mind. A wrestler wasn't really wrestling much, but had this persona that was just really captivating to me. But also, you're obvious, Stone Cold, The Rock. I went to see WWF in '99 when it came to Manchester.
Wow.
No Mercy. And that was amazing. I went with my dad, who wasn't really bothered about wrestling at the time, but that was amazing for me. And I do remember kind of really wanting a Stone Cold t-shirt from the merch, but they'd all sold out. I guess that's kind of how much merch they would sell, and the only shirt that they had that I was kind of, I don't know. I think I kind of pushed myself to buy something. I ended up with a Triple H t-shirt, but he was such a heel at the time that I don't think I wanted a heel t-shirt, but I ended up just buying it anyway. But yeah, they were the kind of influence on me when I sort of started watching wrestling, at a younger age.
Would he have still had my time back then? Or would he have transitioned into the game by 99? He'd have had my time, wouldn't he?
I don't think it was the game at that point.
Yeah, I think it was in the 2000s he transitioned into the game, wasn't it?
Yeah. I want to say there was still, 99 was still the, was it the Ministry? Around that time. I know it wasn't that, but
my favourite Undertaker era by far.
Yeah. I think it was that. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of the influence.
I think you could have done worse than a Triple H t-shirt.
I know, yeah. Oh, I mean, now when you look back at it, it's I never kept the t-shirt, but cool. I had a Triple H t-shirt, but when you're that young, and I think you're so, things are quite black and white for you, and I was love the faces, and hate the heels, and I ended up with, when you end up with a heel t-shirt, it's I've got a bad guys t-shirt. But yeah.
So that's what made you grow up to become a heel.
Probably. He probably had that. Maybe that's where the brainwashing come from. That t-shirt brainwashed me into becoming a heel.
You've heard it here first. That's the origin story.
I've never thought of that until you just said it. So maybe that is the reason. So.
So, I mean, there's a few great influences there, but going back, hopping back on this thing, were you a WCW person rather than WWE were you growing up? Or a bit of
I don't
both?
know. I think, yeah, a little bit of both because we never had Sky at home.
Mm.
So WCW and I guess WWF Heat and the fact that Channel 4 used to have that and they used to have the pay-per-views. So like my kind of, I never really had massive exposure to it. Other than my mate who used to live down the street from like the other street from me used to have Sky, and we used to watch Raw whenever we used to go around, and yeah, we used to play wrestling games on the N64 and things like that. So I mean, I was kind of a bit of both, but I think, yeah, I think I just used to like how cool WCW was. I think
Yeah.
maybe because it's for Sting for me, maybe that was the reason.
Well, you are correct in saying that Sting had such a presence, which he still holds to this day. Like he
Yeah,
didn't have to overwork or do too much. Like with Sting, less was more.
yeah,
He was
definitely,
really, really
yeah.
good.
And I think I know a lot of people draw comparisons to like Sting and Undertaker and how, you know, I think Sting's quite a few years older than Undertaker, but he's, you know, could still go. But if you think of like the Undertaker was wrestling like pretty much non-stop for most of his career, but I think Sting had quite a big break, didn't he, until he went to TNA, and then
Yeah.
even with his WWE kind of contract was probably like the Legends kind of contract. So
Yeah.
Yeah, less is more for that. And I think that's kind of where the persona kind of really helped kind of build his following, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to see people trying the hardest not to over exert. No,
Yeah,
of course, I'm just a fan. I've never been in the ring, so I can't really comment
yeah,
on that. But
yeah,
it's when someone's got that character bang on, and they
mm,
don't need to do much to get the ire of the fans, you know you've got something special.
yeah. And I think it was obvious that he was a great worker before the Crows, you know, before the Crow sort of Sting.
Hmm.
Um, and he did kind of keep most of that kind of ring ability, like ring moveset and whatnot, just changed the character. So he'd already kind of established himself as such a good worker.
Yeah.
And it was the character change now that kind of cemented his kind of place as someone who could, you know, change, adapt, and make his, you know, arguably, I guess some people might disagree, but for me, the Crow Sting is his better persona. And it's a bit like when kind of like Bray Wyatt evolved. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
people are really into like the Fiend now, and like that's the epitome of Bray Wyatt kind of thing. But is that how you feel?
Honestly, I was on the radio the other day. I was talking to Jimmy about it, Jimmy
Oh
Bailey,
yeah, yeah,
and he's not a fan. He thinks it's too hokey, but
really. That's
it
interesting.
is right down my street. I
That's
think
interesting. That.
I think because we've kind of gone out of the days of the Undertaker in the '90s and all that, but I, I I like a bit of hokey as long as it's not too stupid. And the fact that they've written the Fiend off TV, but it's still there through Alexa
Yeah,
Bliss, and she is killing it right now. So I enjoy it. I very much enjoy it.
yeah. I think that was a real kind of. I don't know how to describe it, but I guess in a world where wrestling has kind of, like you said, stepped away from a lot of character stuff.
Mm.
Being a character wrestler myself,
Yeah.
you know, when the Fiend came back, it was kind of like that kind of hope that, you know what, character wrestling still has a place.
Oh, I wholesale agree.
Yeah, and that the Fiend's characters kind of rejuvenated maybe a lot of people's views that yeah, there is a space for it in all types of wrestling. And like you said, I mean, I've not seen much of what Alexa Bliss is doing, but by the looks of it, when I first heard about it, it did seem like it was just a kind of they didn't know what to do with Alexa, so they've kind of put her with the Fiend sort of stuff. But from what I've seen, she's really made it her own.
Yeah.
And it's not like just a bit part that she's playing in this whole scheme. It's she's really kind of turning heads with it as well, which again is another kind of layer to Alexa Bliss as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Royal Rumble, when she came out, number 27, I believe. I was sat there, I was sat on my chair here, my mum was sat in the bed over there, who were watching it. I said, okay, now the Rumble starts. I was waiting for Bliss to come out.
Yeah.
And then mid-transformation, Rhea Ripley eliminates her. Now, I don't think anybody can say anything against Rhea Ripley. Phenomenal talent. But in that very little moment, I hated her for eliminating her. Even though it was smart, it was a genius thing to do. But it was she's captivating, Bliss. She's very captivating with what she does because she knows how to do it. Her character, she's another one. Her character work's always been fantastic.
Definitely, yeah, I agree with that. I don't think the character change thing would have worked in the Rumble, really, would it? And it was good to give the crowd that tease as well, I guess.
Yeah, it was genius. Absolutely brilliant booking. Brilliant. It made Rhea Ripley look smart as well because usually you see a lot of WWE when they transform or something happens, they usually just stand there and rock. It's like when you see someone like Rhea Ripley act on it.
Yeah, she's having none of it, yeah.
It provides that smarts. So it's a brilliant show from top to bottom, to be honest.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
But I personally do think character work still holds a massive place in pro wrestling as a whole because we seem to have gone into more of a work rate era, haven't we?
Yeah.
But
and it is important. It is important, but
it is.
It's I guess it's your. There's loads of different kinds of wrestling, isn't there? And not everyone likes, the deathmatch stuff. Not everyone likes the kind of hard hitting stuff. People might prefer character stuff, so there is something for everyone. And, I think wrestling as a whole, as an industry, has a lot of stretch as to, what can happen in it.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's something I've always said. Like, if you wanted to get into wrestling, just try and find your niche. Because if you watch one match, that isn't just what you're going to see. There's so much out there. Like, there's comedy. You can go for Sugar Dunkerton, DDL, Big Joe. If you want hard hitting, you've got Chris Ridgway, Luke Jacobs. There are so many different avenues for people to just try and find their niche.
Definitely. Yeah.
And there you go. That's the beauty of it, in my opinion. Absolute beauty of it.
Yeah.
But speaking of, because yes, I do see you as a character-driven wrestler. It's one of the things I was going to talk about, actually. Where did the guiding light gimmick come from with the book and the brainwashing?
Yeah, so initially it was Johnny Brannigan, who was the owner of GPW and the trainer. Oh, here we go. He's got his mug. I just saw that. The Isaiah Quinn mug. What a shameless plug. You can there's a few of them left on my big cartel guys.
Hint.
Yeah.
So, you've got to drink your coffee right, haven't you?
Fantastic. Yeah, definitely. That's lovely, that. So it was Johnny Brannigan's kind of idea to go down a kind of conspiracy theorist cult kind of vibe. And I came up with the Isaiah Quinn gimmick and guiding light persona. I never used to have the book originally. I had a staff because it was quite wizardy, magey sort of thing. Yeah. Occasionally I'll use that as a really legitimate weapon, but kind of evolved it into a cult leaders manipulate people, don't they? That's what they do. And on a very on a kind of commercial level, you might see it in Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes where there are there are stories out there of, consumers giving people money for a service that doesn't necessarily exist. And also with the cult kind of thing, there's a lot of homework that you can do. There's documentaries to watch. Lots of cult leaders that can really kind of influence that character as well. So that's kind of where it came from. It was Johnny's idea to go down that route after I was kind of experimenting with a kind of religious sort of gimmick. Now with the cult thing, there's a kind of secular, I don't want to say religion aspect, because I don't like to kind of I don't want to kind of bring that into wrestling, the sort of religious side of things. I want to keep it more less faith-based and more about what's the word? Lifestyle-based rather than religious-based.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Does make sense, because it's a fine line with religion between entertainment and ruffling a couple of feathers here or there. So it makes sense. Does make sense.
Yeah, and I think the broader I can keep it, the more avenues there are down there to go down with a cult leader. And, I've been kind of experimenting with that as a kind of motivational speaker and, the kind of like TV sort of stuff, that you wouldn't necessarily think a cult leader would do, but it's still kind of got that brainwashing element that people are trapped in my TV world sort of thing.
Yeah. Do you reckon Sting would have? I know Sting wasn't a cult leader, but he was dark. Do you reckon he would have had a hand in it, in your ideas?
Oh yeah, definitely. That, like, the kind of you might not see it necessarily, but there's that darkness, isn't there? And even though he was more face or whatnot, the presence, that's kind of how I want to come across when I'm in the ring. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But like, I want to, I'm not the biggest guy, I want to be able to have a presence, even when I'm not in the ring, sort of thing. So like, at Future Shock as an example, the stuff with Kev Lloyd and John McGregor, like, that is their story. Kev Lloyd versus John McGregor used to be the Sexy Gents, and now they're at Loggerheads. And then there's me in the background, like whispering in his ear. So like, I'm not the forefront, of the story, but I've still got that presence and input there. But yes, and Sting had that presence. Because you just look at the kind of the NWO kind of angles in WCW, usually towards the end of most of the shows, it was like the fake Stings. Oh, it's a fake Stings, and you never really know if the real Sting's going to come out. And ultimately, they've created that fear from him not even being there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It takes great booking for someone to do that, for you to always have that person in the back of your mind all the time. And it's almost like you play the sort of devil on Kevin Lloyd's shoulder, don't you?
Yeah, the devil's advocate kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of it, isn't it? The manipulating and brainwashing of Kevin Lloyd that's kind of brought out this more aggressive side. And that's the side that people might disagree with me, but I think it's the side that Kev Lloyd needs to show to be a champion. And I am glad to have brought that out of him.
Well, as am I, because it's made for great watching. Where did the idea come from for you to start brainwashing Kev?
It was just interesting to see, how can I put it? Kevin was better than he thought he was. Kevin is better than he thought he was at that time. And John McGregor was getting all these plaudits. In my opinion, that was luck. He had a lot of luck on his side. He won the Legacy tournament. And then John kind of went down this route to being a champion, the heavyweight champion at Future Shock. But Kevin was kind of, had fallen by the wayside. Now, what better way to pick someone up and get inside their head than someone who has lost that kind of will? Yeah, dead easy. And I knew that Kevin was a brilliant mat technician. He can be brutal. If you've seen him put that full Nelson on, you can snap your neck if you want. If he channeled that power, and I think he just needed someone, i.e., me, to help him channel that power. So it was an obvious decision to look at Kevin Lloyd and bring him to where he should be, and that helped bring me to where I am in terms of stature in Future Shock.
Yeah, it works. It's like a vulture over the top looking for someone who's vulnerable to prey on. And
you're using a very harsh word. Prey on him. Listen to this, right? You can brainwash and manipulate as much as you want, but the other person has to have something inside their head that makes them realize, actually, I do need something. So it's not just me that's brainwashing Kev. Kev's got something in his head and it's clicked that he's realized that I can give him something. So Prey, I'm not this vicious person you're making me out to be, Adam.
I'm inclined to agree. You persuaded me.
Yeah, I persuaded you. I'm good like that, mate. I'm good like
that. Okay, I won't say pray. I won't say pray. So do you... That's the train of thought now.
See, now I've got inside your head.
You have, yeah, you have. That's all it takes. I'm saying he was vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, what will you? What would be your ambitions for if and when wrestling is to return? What would be your ambitions going forward?
That's a good one. My ambitions. I think it's important that I do want to still wrestle as much as I can. I want to make a point of wrestling for promotions that are promoting equality and diversity. I think that a lot of things have happened during this pandemic that has made me think that everyone can try a little bit harder to kind of ask promoters what they're doing to be more diverse and promoting equality and safe and being safe and looking after the welfare of wrestlers as well. So it's a hard kind of train of thought to get into because you're so used to kind of sliding into promoters' DMs asking for bookings, but I think it's important to be able to say, I'm interested in a booking. Before I send you some stuff over, do you have safeguarding measures in place, and et cetera, and not being afraid to ask that question. I do want to, I want to wrestle. I am still very, eager to be able to get into the other minds of wrestlers like I have with Kevin.
Yeah.
And I guess that isn't really down to a promoter. That's down to me finding that right person to manipulate. And I will. It's just where that happens. But also, I'm enjoying doing that guiding light TV stuff, and that's made me think a lot about the future in terms of where I want to be after my sort of in-ring career finishes, and certainly would be very keen in looking at doing some commentary and looking at kind of behind the scenes sort of creative stuff that, so I don't think I'd ever just kind of stop wrestling and then leave the industry. You know, I think there's a lot that I can kind of do, you know, after that, maybe even do a bit whilst I am wrestling.
It sounds great. Yeah, I mean, you've already jumped onto commentary quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, and commentating with Rob Halden and also Matt Richards has just been like such a learning experience as well, because you know they've got a lot of experience in doing that at such a high level that it's just great to kind of see how they work and looking at kind of the notes they make to kind of big up a match. And you know, I remember commentating with both Robin and Matt. They big up the matches so much that you kind of forget yourself that you're there to commentate, and you know they've built the match so strong that it's like I'm so invested in it, especially with main events, you know. So that, you know, it's been really good learning from them guys, and you know, I'd love to do it more with them as well.
Those two are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
When I watch back certain shows or certain matches from on demand, they're absolutely brilliant. Rob Harden's fantastic.
Yes.
It is one thing I would actually really like to get into myself, because
Yeah.
it was a lifelong ambition for me to get into wrestling, but when you've got epilepsy, it's a bit difficult.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, suffered a concussion a number of years ago, and yeah, that kind of put a pin in that one. But
yeah, well, there's loads of avenues you can go down, though, isn't it?
yeah,
Like we were just talking about their commentary and whatnot. And this podcast, I guess, is going to really help you with kind of structure and stuff like that. And you know, I bet you could reach out to tons of commentators that will give you some kind of support in terms of how to develop that.
yeah. I mean, it's exactly something I'd love, because I go on the radio every Wednesday, and I did start this because I did want to do something like a podcast, something like that. It was initially to help me with my interviewing skills for when we're on the radio and things like that, to help me improve. But I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the
That's really good.
podcast aspect of it. It's really fun. Nervous beforehand, but when you get into it, it's great. But
yeah,
I can kind of imagine being like you, though. Whereas when you're in the commentary table and they're bigging up and hyping for a match, and you just start that.
Yeah.
And you kind of get taken out of the moment of, oh wait, I'm on commentary.
Yeah, I think it is good to still have that fanboy, fangirl kind of element. You know, I'm still a fan of wrestling. You know, it's fine to mark out. I still mark out.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, when you see certain things, it's like, oh my god, like, and that's it. I don't ever want to lose that. And I guess when you are involved in wrestling, it does kind of, you do learn to suppress that, because obviously you're behind the scenes and you kind of get more of an idea of what is actually going on behind the scenes, etc. But it never dies. I don't think it ever dies. You just kind of learn to kind of suppress it in a way.
That's the passion, though. That's what brings out the passion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if I was involved in it, I wouldn't want to lose that aspect of it, because that's what brought you into the business in the first place, isn't it? The ability to get so invested that oh my god, like last year when Edge returned at the Royal Rumble, like,
oh yeah,
hands down my favorite moment in Rumble history.
Amazing that on it, yeah.
I
know, yeah. It's sort of the testament to the work he did, you know, and he was retired. I think he was clearly admired by the fans, Hall of Famer, really, isn't he? And then this, you know, that bad injury he's had, and all it's took is his music, and all of a sudden, it's some people's favorite wrestling moment of all time, or you know what I mean? And that just kind of shows the different mediums that wrestling has. You know, you've got
Yeah.
the physical aspect, you've got the story aspect, you've got the visual and auditory stuff like music, wrestling music. Like, do you remember when CM Punk left and Paul Heyman came out to CM Punk's music? Such a, like, being able to elicit that emotions from fans is like, there's not many forms of media that can do that.
No, not at all. Bang on. Absolutely bang on. It's like when Shawn Michaels returned to Montreal. It's like, who's your daddy, Montreal? And then Bret Hart's music comes on. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful. Music in pro wrestling is so integral.
Definitely.
So integral. Because I remember Cedric Alexander in his first 3 years on the main roster had an entrance theme, and it took about 10 seconds to. It was like so slow, but it took about 10 seconds, to kick in.
Yeah.
And he'd come out like a house on fire, but the music took so long to kick in that it didn't fit with the entrance, and
Right.
it can, in my opinion, like, because wrestling's art, and music adds to. If you see the Undertaker, his gong,
Oh yeah.
one gong, that's all it takes for the entire arena just to. That's it.
Yeah.
It's
The first second of a song, if it's memorable enough, you'll pop for it, won't you?
yeah. So, word. Speaking of, we've mentioned it a couple of times. Where did the idea for Guiding Light TV come from?
Yeah. So lockdown, I was furloughed from work. I wanted to keep myself busy. I felt like I had to do something creatively, just to keep sane. Now I initially had this idea to do a guiding light TV channel, but it was just me. And I'd filmed loads of stuff for it, and it was going to be a full week of promos from me. But I thought, what a really good opportunity to just collaborate with people, because there's going to be a lot of people in the same position who aren't working, who are stuck at home or whatever. So, that's kind of where the idea came from, for just doing a mess about, really, but also, hopefully the guys who were involved in it got something out of it in terms of developing themselves or whatever. And I just kind of wanted to. I mean, it was self-serving as well, because it all went out on my channel.
Yeah.
The channel, my Twitter channel, whatever. And but like, it was nice being able to work with people who were passionate about doing something during lockdown. And yeah, I felt like there was some fans of Guiding Light TV, so that kind of did the job, really.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, we're on lockdown, and it's just a nice piece of entertainment, isn't it?
Yeah, something to do, isn't it? Something to watch.
Yeah, it's an escape, like much like wrestling. Just for that moment, it's an escape to provide the fans with a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, and I think everyone who got involved was keen, eager to do it, and really, it also created a nice little camaraderie between us all. And I think I wasn't, I didn't really know everyone who was involved with it, like, friend wise. I think I knew him as more of an acquaintance, and I think that it did bring people together, and for me has kind of strengthened bonds with people, which is pretty good. And so I think a lot of positives have come out of it, and it helped me as well with like hang on a minute, I could certainly use this method of Guiding Light TV as part of my cult leader, in terms of doing segments on shows, interviews with people and whatnot, and motivational talks and whatnot. Yeah, so that's kind of where it came about.
Yeah, it can keep you busy, but it certainly keeps you busy. But it can, and I don't want to say ring rust because it's not necessarily ring rust, but it keeps the ideas of the character going and fresh,
Yeah.
even though we're in lockdown. So you're unable to get to the ring to flourish that character. So the character's then going into something else instead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is. It's kind of like character rust, isn't it, rather than ring rust? But I think
Yeah.
you don't want to lose that kind of creative flow, spark or flow that you might have been in. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you get. I imagine when you're wrestling, it becomes natural and powerful, of course. You get into it, and then boom, you're in the character. So when you're
Yeah.
off for
Especially
so
if you're
long,
doing. Yeah. I mean, I recently did a promo that I put out, and it took me a long time to kind of get into the groove. I think
yeah, I
because
can imagine.
I was out of it for so long that I kind of almost forgot how to get into my zone. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And it's kind of rediscovering that as well.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah, because after such a long time off, it's been a year now, hasn't it? So
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much been a year.
that's mad.
Wow.
Yeah, I can imagine getting a bit difficult to try and get back into the swing of things, back into because going from having so much time off to straight back into like going, okay, got to cut a promo. This is how you do it. You need to sort of get in the mentality back
Yeah,
into the wrestling gimmick.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
your gimmick kind of lends itself more to heel, I think,
Mm.
rather than a baby face. But do you reckon? How would you be able to see yourself as a baby, or which one would you rather work more, heel or baby? Have you ever thought about
Yeah, definitely thought
that?
about it. I think I can certainly see how it might work as a babyface, in particular with the following and Nick Maguire,
Oh yeah,
as we're a tag team in a few places, and I think that the little skits that we put out, the following is a really good kind of idea of how you can take a cult character and make it more comedic, because ultimately I think fans would do revel in the idea that we're trying to create a cult, but it's actually quite hard because no one wants to join us. So I think that's where the kind of comedy comes in, and the
yeah,
aspect of always falling down or whatever, or always kind of failing, but trying to pick yourself back up. I think is, that's, there's loads of ways that I think we can go down. I think I even discussed with a promoter about getting hit on the heads like really hard, and then the next show come out and I kind of forget some key things about what I am and who I am. Like the Book of Isaiah has been replaced with Hello Magazine or something, but I'm not really quite sure how how that happened. In my head, it's still the same, but because I got hit on the head so hard.
I want that now. I want to see
Yeah,
that now.
yeah.
Hello,
I think
magazine.
there are lots of different ways that we can go down, and I think we have almost kind of we've tried it little bits in our in ring kind of stuff, me and Nick, but not massively. I think it's down to what the promoter wants from us, and I think that promoters see us as more of a sort of strong negative vibe in their promotion, which I'm fine. I'm fine with.
Yeah,
I am I class myself as a multifaceted person. So even with that kind of comedic side to me, you won't know whether I that is me or it's just a ploy. So
oh, that's the beauty of the cult gimmick. That's the beauty of
yes,
it.
yes.
Well, I thank you very much.
Oh, no problem.
Is there any social media you'd like to plug at all?
You can find me on the worst social media platform called Twitter at Guiding Light IQ. I'm also on Instagram at Guiding Light IQ. That's mostly cat stuff. And you can find me on Facebook at Guiding Light IQ. So all the same handles for them three things. Yeah, thanks, Adam. It's been great. Nice talking to you.
Thank you very much. Everyone get a follow him. Everyone get a follow Guarding Light IQ. Isaiah, thank you ever so much. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. All the best with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.